We'll go through this briefly again. In the other tutorial I've gone through, but here, before I open the actual AZMAT System main program file and other files, let's have a quick look at the Excel menu icons, which I've got here. New, as you can see, that very useful. All these commands, icons I've added, they are very useful in Excel. So instead of having to go through each of these different menus and finding where they are, if they're all here, you can use them same as me if you like. So we have this new, open, save as, print, preview and print, undo, close all files, redo, window, switch windows. So if you have several windows open, you can use that. Search, find, that is search, replace, copy, paste, spatial, paste formatting, format, unhide window, hide window, view macros, Visual Basic, opens the Visual Basic editor, view code, defined names, define name. So this one is where you're actually going to define a particular name, whereas these shows the existing defined names within that particular file. Protect the sheet, protect workbook, go to particular place, go to spatial, insert cells, delete cells, calculate sheet, calculation options. I find all these menu icons very, very useful in every version of Excel, on every computer. When I get Excel, I make sure I've got all these here, not just in Excel, but also within various other Microsoft programs, for example, Microsoft Word. Not all these commands are applicable, but the ones they are, I have them all, and it's useful to have them in the same position. So you do not need to, for example, the close and close all files, the undo, redo, and so on. Windows, switch window. These are all common commands. They should be in all versions of the different versions of Microsoft, even programs of Microsoft Office. Okay, having that, let's go through opening the particular AZMAT System file. So file, open. If it depends where you have it stored, I'm using this particular version in Excel on a USB stick drive F, and I'm calling Excel 2010 because it is under Excel 2010. You might notice that here I have Office 95, Excel, and then AZMAT. But within AZMAT here, you'll see Office 95, Excel folder, then AZMAT folder. Within AZMAT folder, I have these 5 subfolders: AZMAT Back, Miscellaneous, Sub, AZMAT Text, AZMAT Excel 12. If I go and show you here an Excel 2010 version as well, I have the AZMAT folder, and underneath that, I have the same subfolders as I had them above there. So Excel, AZMAT Excel 12, AZMAT text, AZMAT text, AZMAT sub, AZMAT sub, AZMAT NSC, and AZMAT back, then AZMAT. So all these subfolders are the same name as subfolders. They must be within, they must be, you must have these subfolders under the AZMAT system in which the program files are stored. The actual program files are exactly the same, whether they are whichever version of Excel is being used, except that in later version of Excel, as you can notice that all the files are XLSX. Kept the original program file the same, .xls, but these other files, all the other files, or most of them, you'll notice that they are all XLSX. Whereas if I go back to the original version, this is Excel version 7 of 95 actually is, in there, you'll notice that the files are all XLS. The extension number is .xls. In the very old, earlier version of Excel, the macro files were named as .xlm, and for mother. But later on, from Excel 5 onwards, they're all called, the extension is .xls. But later version, as you can see, all the files are the same. 100 or more than 100 files, system files, .xls. But if you go back to here, Excel 2010 here, original system file that still works, that same file, program file will work, whether Excel is version 5 or up to 16 currently available as we speak in 2017. The system automatically detects which version of Excel you are using and then adapts itself. And you work from under Windows 3.1 all the way up to Windows 10, which is currently, when this video was made in 2017. So Excel, this system, you learn how to actually create system files that will work under whatever version of Excel the user is using. Of course, in this particular instance, since when Microsoft actually changed the versions, the file extensions, this was a major change. So the system files had to be changed, saved in the current version of Excel. So the XLSX, they're all here, but in the earlier version, Windows, for example, Excel 95 onwards, they're all XLS. So that's a major thing. Other than that, the actual program files would be the same. It's just simply, there are certain files, for example, in here, AZMAT Excel 12, X12, I'm calling it because I just wanted to make sure they're all 8 versions. This is Excel 12 VB1.xlsm, XLSM, for example. Now, I don't need this particular file. I do not need in earlier versions of Excel because it doesn't need to. It is created from Excel version 12 onwards. It needs that. That's why it's called Excel 12 VB onwards. So there are more versions of VB, Visual Basic Files. I would call them VB 2, 3, 4, and so on. All the other directories, the files, as you can see here, this because it's the later version, you're using Excel for XLSX versions. Whereas in the other one, if I go back here, same AZMAT sub, and the other one, they're all XLS. But the files are otherwise exactly the same. It's just saved in different format depending on the version of Excel. If I go and look at the MSC, these are all risk management files. So various reports, as you can see, they're all XLS there. And these are different versions of in AZMAT System, you have 3 different versions of risk management systems. And depending on, as you will see later on, that's why there are different names, why the actual names have got this one, CJ, for example, all these CJ, PH, different, PJ, and so on. They all mean something. But just by looking at the file, you'd be able to tell which particular risk management system the file belongs to. And these, notice these files are all .xls, because I'm looking at the Office 95 Excel AZMAT MS. If I change it to here, Excel 2010, AZMAT and AZMAT MSC, you'll notice that all the file extensions are .xlsx, because now we are using different version of Excel. That's the only difference. The actual files are exactly the same. Only the file extension is different. And of course, they were created in the different versions of Excel. Again, you would notice here that there are different, begin here. For example, I'm using AA and then A2, A3, and so on. This basically is the user ID, which in my case, I'm using AA. So using that, files beginning with AA. If your user ID, you could choose whatever you like. So if you use, for example, KY, so they will begin with KY and then different version of, as different risk reports are produced, I'm using, for example, AA3, 4, and so on, 5. And CJ1 is a different risk management system file than CJDB or CJ3, and so on. So there are in here, this particular file alone, the database is the risk management system alone here, as you can see, all so many files, many. You can create, literally, you might be creating hundreds of files by the time you try using different versions. So that's the .in MSC. So now if you actually look at, I will go back here, I just want to show you something here. The sub one here, let's see if there are, yes, because there are different, you can see here, ZR US dollar .xlsx. So there are different letters I'm using. The actual file name is ZRUSD, but here letter X. Then we are using the letter W, or the letter V, or the letter Y. They're all different versions for the curve rate. But then here you can see the GBP is British pound file, JPY, Japanese yen file, XEU, the euro file, and so on. So the 3 characters represent the currency: US dollar, euro, British pound, or Japanese yen. There are many other currencies, but then the other 2 letters here, you notice ZR. So they all begin with ZR. But in here, in this AZMAT subdirectory, you'll notice that you've got the letter X or Y or W or V is before the actual file name. They all mean different type of files for the curve. So there are 4 different versions, but the actual for the user, as far as the user is concerned, user just knows by these 3 currency characters for the currency, and then the 2 characters ZR. All of them are the same. ZR, ZR, ZR. Then we have the other 4 different letters V, W, X, and Y, which I'm using for different versions, if you like, of that file, which are used and which you will learn how to actually use them and when. So that particular file is created for this directory, this folder. AZMAT sub is for the curve or rates files of not the main AZMAT system rates file, which I'll show you here. If you go back to the main program file there, AZMAT, here you'll notice that the actual ZR, let's see where it is, ZRUSD, ZRJPY, ZRGBP, ZRXEU, and so on. There are more currencies, but I'm using here, for example, only 4. But in the main program file, you notice that you will have only the actual program file name. That's it. But in this working directory or folder, if you like, AZMAT sub, the same files have got 4 other versions, not the main program. Main program file is saved always in the main AZMAT program file directory or folder. The working versions of each of those files are saved under AZMAT sub. So we have V, W, X, or Y version of the same file, depending what the user did when the user edited it for full edit or race edit, or whether user opened it just for viewing or whatever. So they're different. We will go through that later on. Why will you? So in AZMAT system, a lot of background work is being done, and all the files are being saved in different folders or directories. So this one has got only all these. AZMAT sub is all the curve files, the race files for different currencies, the working AZMAT system working files, if you like. User doesn't need to know those. The user is not aware, it doesn't care. All the user needs to know is, all the user sees are the main program files in the main AZMAT program directory, which will have only the, for example, ZRGBP, ZRJPY, USD, and so on. Not with these extra letters before the actual file name, these prefixes. Okay, that's AZMAT sub. Now here we go and look at the AZMAT MS. This is the different rates, risk management files, but different versions of rates management, of risk management files. Not rates, risk management files are stored here. And this file, you can actually get carried away. You could have literally hundreds of files, different reports. Some are very small ones. Some are very, very large ones. It could take a long time to prepare and so on. And you can see the size file, but you can see that in here varies size. but the actual, it depends on what the user had asked for as well. So there are 3 different risk management systems I have developed, which you will learn within Excel system, the AZMAT system. And in here, you will see that the reports just by the name. So to distinguish it, say, for example, the cjdb.xls, you have another cjdb and again another one. So you have used here A1, A2, and so on. Or this particular one here, for example, they're all there for the user AA, but then I'm using A1, A2, A2, A3, and so on, which is underneath somewhere here, A3 and so on. So you have different types. You can have as many as you like versions in different reports, which may be only slightly different, but the system automatically using a different version by giving different names. User doesn't give these names. You decide, the system developer. You'll decide, and you'll see why they are being used. For example, PJ, and then CJ, and so on. CJDB, or here CJ123, so on. All these things you will learn as you start developing your own system. So there's a lot to learn. This system took risk management system off, which is just 1/4 of AZMAT system took itself. Risk management took more than 2 years. So you can imagine you're not going to learn it in 2 days. It will take time, but you will learn depending on how much you want to learn. So you could learn, when you learn risk management system, not just risk management actually system, but how to develop different computer systems for different companies. So the techniques you learn will be very similar depending, it does not really matter what company you are working for. They're always very common, different common things which are in any computer systems, and you learn the various techniques. For example, separate your working files in different folders or directories, where you could have literally hundreds of files. So in the risk management here, you will have here, for example, this is just a very, just for one user. Remember, all these files were created by one user. They're not system files, they are just user reports. So you could create literally hundreds of files. So it is very important to keep them in separate folders. And so that is why here, for example, the risk management user report files are stored in this AZMAT MSC. Whereas the AZMAT sub, for example, has got the files for the curve files, but they are not for users. They are purely for the programmer, developers files use. The user doesn't even need to know they exist. They are here for the rates fund. Then we have the AZMAT text folder. At this point, it is empty, but here you will have files. This is the AZMAT XL12. X12 is just a folder purely for the program file, and that particular Excel version 12 onwards file, this particular macro, VBA macro file is used. Well, that's why it's specifically there and separate. And then we have the AZMAT backup files. Backup file is used. This is used by the AZMAT system program. Creates a folder for depending on different, because here, just imagine if you're creating this system is being used by, literally dozens, if not hundreds of people in a large investment bank. They could have up to 1,000 people using it. So for different days, if you had all the backup files for all of them together, you could have literally thousands and thousands of files for hundreds and hundreds of users. You don't want all of them mixed up. So the first thing what it does is it actually creates a date. So I have a folder for this, in this particular one, as you can see, on the 14th of October 2015. So the year is first 4 characters, then the month, then the date. So this is 2017 July 1st, 2017 July 2nd, and so on. So depending on how often or when the system was used, it creates a folder in which then it can store the files as it needs to. So it requires that particular system automatically. The user doesn't need to create. System creates and then stores files for that particular day in that by the actual folder name is the date of that when the system was used. Simple as that. And so this, as if you find there is nothing in there, you may want to perhaps later on go and delete these folders. Or better still, you could actually write a program when you get really proficient, when you learn how to program properly. You could actually go and create a program which will go and look at all these directories or folders and see which are empty and then delete them as a program, which can automatically do that. So you can just run a program within AZMAT System to do that, if you like, or outside AZMAT System, just in Excel. So let's close that, we'll leave that. So just to recap, AZMAT folder or directory requires these 5 subfolders: AZMAT back, AZMAT MSC, AZMAT sub, AZMAT text, AZMAT X12. And some of these folders, for example, they will have, this is called AZMAT program directory, this is text, which will be empty to begin with, but later on, AZMAT System will store specific files there. Or the sub, again, this will be here, that will be specialist curve files, working files will be stored by AZMAT System. And this is for the risk management. Again, AZMAT System itself will store the files. The user files will be under the same name. For example, this is F drive, and within there, folder called AZMAT. That itself, now these other folders are just my own folders. You don't need to know, don't need to have those, but you need to have the actual files. It requires some of these files have to be there. For example, the ini file, the initializing files. You can have where each user describes what they need, what their preferences are within AZMAT System. So they'll be stored in the ini file. AA.xls, for example, for the user AA. I'm using letter A, 2 letters AA for my use, so the file is created. And you might notice it's got AA.xls and also AA.xlsx. So whichever version of Excel I'm using, the files are stored here in that directory. I could actually keep only the .xlsx files here, or only all XLS, or I can mix them up. It doesn't really matter. The system will automatically use the correct version. So it's using the ini.xlaa, ini.xls, aa, ini.xlsx. The reason this is important is the first 2 initials are Imagine if you're using in an investment bank, large company, several users are using AZMAT System. You want to be able to distinguish different users' files, initialization files, or the user files, AZMAT System data file, which is AA.xlsx. Didn't mean to actually change this there. So they are stored here. So by the first initials, as long as the first initials are different, then they will, each user, knowing what the initials they use as a user, they'll be able to separate their files and quickly select them all to copy it somewhere else if they wish. If this AZMAT system was being used by more than one user on the same network drive, for example. So in here, because it's being used only by one user, AA, they're all AA, begin with A. But there are different the files for different calculation models, for example. So in here, calculation model, which I'm calling using the letter D or C or F or G and so on. So there are files, they are the AZMAT system database for that particular bond group. G is for bond database. B is for AZMAT asset swap model files. Notice that all have first two letters are the user's initials. The last five have got AZMAT, and only this third initial, the letter, third letter, is the one that specifies the which particular calculation model database file this is. Again, some of these other files you might notice. Then it has got the AA and the date. This is again means different things. We'll go through those later on if need to. Any files here, AA, P, W, and so on, X, Y. You may notice these are different. We won't go through it right now, but as like here, you notice different calculation model files are there like that. So only the database for that particular one I'm using. And there's obviously backup of A.xlx. So it always creates a backup file, but this is created by Excel itself. So AZMAT system needs the user directory, all the user files, but that particular user are stored here under the particular drive and then AZMAT directory or folder. And if there is more than one user on the same computer, network drive, for example, if this was a network drive, then you'll have different user initials there. Okay. So we go back here, we'll go back to look at the actual, back to here, AZMAT system. You must have all the program files are under, in this case, this doesn't need to be Excel 2010. It could be anything, but it obviously makes sense. If I know that under there, then I know it is under I'm using the Excel 2010 version. Excel I need to start using, and then it'll use those files. And similarly, if I go back up here, Excel and Office 95, Excel, AZMAT, if I use that file, that directory is, notice they both are on the same F USB stick or USB drive. F. You can have several versions of AZMAT system depending on different versions of Excel on the same drive, and so you can use those. So this particular one is sorted under alphabetical order, so that's why you can see that they're all under the ABC and go on. And we go through that. This is the program directory. Don't forget, this is the program directory. Office 95, Excel, and AZMAT. In program directory, there are different files. User files are stored under AZMAT drive and then AZMAT folder. Program files are stored under, in this case, for example, under either the Excel, Office 95, Excel, AZMAT. In this case, doesn't need to be Office 95, depends what you're using. If you're using Office 97 or 2003, 2010, or whatever, you can name that and then put Excel, AZMAT, or not, doesn't matter. But if you're using AZMAT system under the C directory, which is the hard drive, all computers microcomputers use the hard drive letter C. So if you have Excel stored on there, then wherever the Excel file is, AZMAT folder must be under the Excel folder. Excel folder, then AZMAT sys folder, and then all the subfolders for AZMAT system, all the program files here. This is the only difference here. If it's on letter C, if your drive is letter C, it must be the under where the Excel program is installed, and the AZMAT program directory must be under that particular Excel. Must be a subfolder to the Excel program directory. But if the drive letter is different, not C, in this case F, could be H, S, G, whatever. Because it could be on a network drive, then the Excel could be installed on any network drive. That's why then it does not need to be under that Excel program subdirectory. Could be anywhere on that. So that's why in here I have got here Office 95 Excel AZMAT. I could call it subfolder, but in this case for the drive F, it is still saying I'm going here. I've created a subfolder straight from the top, not under Excel, just Excel. I'm calling it XL 2010, and then AZMAT folder is a subfolder to that. So the actual AZMAT program, Excel program, does not need to be installed in that folder. It can be anywhere. This is just so that I know, you know, that this particular version of Excel program and files are AZMAT system files are for this particular version of Excel. So I know that I need to start the Excel 2010 to use this file. So this particular version is basically showing you when you get the AZMAT system, if they're not already in this particular format, you need to create these folders under AZMAT, these 5 subfolders. And for example, in this particular case, this program file must be there. If it's not, AZMAT system will not start. It'll actually tell you and give you an error message, certain system files are not stored here, whatever, and so the system will not start. But the folders, and here, for example, this folder could be empty, or could have other files as well already used from earlier versions. So if, for example, if I see here it is empty, but this particular folder has files, so has this. So some folders will have files, some will not. Others, for example, here has got these dates because those are the days the system was used. So the AZMAT system created these folders. You do not need to have. So this one doesn't require any subfolders at all to begin with. But if they are, it doesn't do any harm. But if these 5 subfolders under the AZMAT folder must be present, AZMAT back, AZMAT MSC, AZMAT sub, AZMAT text, and AZMAT X12. If they're not, if any of them are missing, AZMAT system will not run. So before AZMAT system starts, it does various checks on all these system files, the ones which it's going to use. There are not all of them are system files. For example, these are correlation data files, which were created later on. AZMAT system is storing them here. Volatility files, and so on, by the date of the actual, this date refers to the date of the database it's used. So you do not need to have them, you do not have them. You will have some system files there, with some data files, but they are data in the sense that risk management data files which are required in order to use certain AZMAT system commands. You will be provided with the files you need to have, not necessarily all of them. So this one, for example, Excel macro 1.xls or Excel macro 1.xlsm. So this is the later version of Excel in which this particular macro enabled. You can notice that if I move my macro, as soon as I move my macro, this will go off, but you can read that. Microsoft Excel macro enabled worksheet. Whereas this one in here, it doesn't, it's for an earlier version of Excel file. As you can see, Excel 97 2003 worksheet. Whereas this one is Excel macro enabled worksheet is coding. It's for later versions of Excel. And it ends, that's why the extension is XLSM for mother. So you will be provided with all these files, the ones which are necessary. And AZMAT system will check the files, which files it needs. And if any files are missing, for example, any of these here, or those, you will know. You will be given a message when you try to start using AZMAT system, does all these checks, and if any of these files are missing, you'll get an error message. And the system will simply stop, not run. So let's go here, have a quick look at this. We'll start the Excel AZMAT system again. Let's start here from there. So I'll just cancel it, just start from fresh again here, for example. So we are here in Excel at this particular point. This is visit www.azmat.com for AZMAT system. And this is Excel. And we've already seen that as we go in here, Excel, you can see all these icons, what they stand for. and so on. Let's go and begin. So we start X file, open. So I'm in here, F drive, Excel 2010, AZMAT folder or directory, and this is the program file, azmat.xls. Whichever version of Excel you're using, this file name is always the same. Even though, as you notice, the other files are .xlsx, this one will be azmat.xls, your program file. Open as read-only. You do not want to change the main program file as it is, because if you did, you might think you made some small change. The system may not run, and you don't want that. So do not, I would advise you, strongly advise you, do not change the main program file. Keep it somewhere safe, backup copy. Do not not change. And whenever you open it, always open in read-only, open read-only mode. So here, click on read-only. Password is very simple, this one, because I'm providing this to you. So all this password doesn't need to be any very complicated one, because it's for your own use. Want to make it very simple for you to remember. So click OK. Now it's asking for the system password as my system password, and you learn how to create your own this dialog box. It's called dialog box. This creates that. So this one here, I'm going to type in simple, and this you will be able to, you'll know what it is, but you'll also be able to change it very easily to any password that you wish it to have, your own password for your own computer. So I don't need to know that. It'll be your own password. Okay, and now this comes up. It's done lots of checks meanwhile. Before we got to that stage, lots and lots of things is done. We will go through that later on. When we go through step-by-step mode, as we'll see in later versions of this, these videos, tutorial videos, it can take more than an hour or maybe even 2 hours going through every single command in step mode. But we will go through some of these to go through so that you will then learn more about programming and how you can create your own programs. So at this point, it's asking me to enter my 2-letter ID, which by now you know I'm only using AA. So, and my own password as well, which I'm using. All of them are 4-character rather. Okay. Right. It's opened the AZMAT system data file, as you can see that, and we've been through this one here before, so we won't go through in detail, but you're basically letting you know that the system is ready, AZMAT system is ready. Required command either from select the required command from these JKXGs, MU, ZYN, they're all AZMAT system menus, or from any Excel menu. You notice here, after developer, there's nothing there. When I click OK here, I'll get another message here, there. And the reason I haven't put it all that in one message is because there's a limit in Excel to the amount of text you can put in one particular message. So I had to split this in 2 messages. So when I click OK. I'll get add in there and get my own menus there. AZMAT System. There, we have the add-in and the accession. Notice that you may have noticed that this whole file is all maximized. So I can click that to restore to the version it had this particular size, so I can see all these menus here and this here as well. The other thing here may have noticed, maybe not, that there are no scroll bars there, vertical or horizontal. It's because this particular file was in this maximized mode, so I want to make sure I get the scroll bars. To get the scroll bars, go into the Windows and arrange all. These are different commands. In this version of Excel, the commands are shown here. In older version, earlier versions of Excel, you have different, the commands are different way. Similar commands, not all of them exactly the same, but they're in different versions. So in here, I want to arrange all. There's only one file open right now. Not one file open, one file unhidden. So let me just show you again. Go back there in Windows. If I look at it, there is only one file, which is not hidden. There are other files which are hidden, which if I go and show you this one, unhide window, you'll notice that it has got these old files as well. They're all open as well, but they're all, almost all of them are AZMAT System program files that the system needs. There is one, at least one user file. We'll go through those later on, what they are, each of those. So when you use AZMAT System, you are not, maybe you're not aware, but these files, you've got 3, 6 to 8. 8 of these files are also open, but they're all hidden. And you can unhide them in order to, for example, the program file, in order to look at the macro commands. We will go through that in some other session. I have to close this dialog box and hide dialog box by clicking on the cancel menu. Otherwise, if I click on OK, it will try to unhide that particular file highlighted, that or that, whichever is highlighted, which I don't want to unhide any of these files now. So I'll click cancel. To cancel this command, either click use cancel if there's a cancel button, or use the escape menu, escape key, ESC, usually in the top left corner of your keyboard. Very simple. Click that to cancel any command. So let's just first, we want to arrange the file so we can see the scroll bar. So there is only one file open and not hidden. If there were more than one file which are not hidden, then this command, when we use the Windows arrange all, as I show you that, will put them all together like half and half, split it vertically or horizontally. At this point, there's only one file which is not hidden, so I can just use it arrange all. See, whether it's a tile, horizontal, vertical, cascade, and so on. Windows of active workbook. There's only one here. You could have several files open, but if you could use that tick box to make sure it doesn't try go and arrange all the unhidden and open windows, right? So let's. So this is important, but in this case, it doesn't matter because there's only one file unhidden right now. So tiled is fine. In fact, in this case, it won't make any difference. There's only one file open. So whether you use tiled, horizontal, or vertical wouldn't matter, but let's leave it in the tiled. And watch, I don't have any scroll bars, vertical or horizontal. So if I click OK, so I'm arranging the windows. So let's before I do that, cancel it and start again. So I'm using Windows, Arrange All, Windows of Active Workbook, and leave it as tiled OK. Right, so I've got the vertical scroll bar now. I can go around, or I've got, and also I've got this horizontal as well, scroll bar. So now I'm here. What I can do is either we can go through this individual particular file here again, or we'll just go and actually do something, open the curve file and see, just have a quick look at it. We won't do anything, we won't make any changes to it. So I can use the, go into the, remember all the AZMAT system commands are under the, you have to use the add-ins, then you get the AZMAT system menus, and we just click the down arrow. Don't have to go systematically, you can just go click one there, click one here, or wherever, or click again the same for it to disappear down. Okay, so I can use the, for example, open curve for view. So I'll open this here. You might remember I was saying all the curve erase files begin with ZR. Then there's a three letter, it doesn't have to be letter, 3 character, I should say, because the character could be a letter or number. So we have, for example, I could have US dollar second curve, I could call it US2, US3, and so on. But in this is the main curve file, so it's USD .xlsx, because I have got this particular version of Excel is Excel version 14. So if I enter the full name of that, maximum 12 characters, or the 3 characters. So instead of entering the whole name, which is automatically suggesting, I could have entered just USD, in which case it will open that particular curve. So open OK. Now it's giving me a warning symbol there. Please note that rates file zrusd.xlsx manual, this is a manual version. There's also a live version as well within Excel AZMAT system. So this particular version is manual version, needs to be edited today before it can be used in any calculations in AZMAT system. So click OK there, because the reason is before I start using, and for example, I'll show here, let's go back. So this file is the last saved by on the 1st of July at 1:42 p.m. Today is not, it's 3rd of July, so it needs to be edited that particular day. For example, the rates are all in yellow. Wherever you can change the items, you can change in the daily routine. For example, user should be able to change. Typical user, they're all colored in red. Where colored blue, they are not for users to change, because they have got formula in them. Okay, so here, for example, this also user can change. So just simple color code, I'm using yellow where you can change, but the others you can't. So at this particular point, I have opened is notice read only. In this particular version of Excel, later version here, it doesn't let you change even move the cursor even to their area there because they're all locked. Earlier versions of Excel had no problem. You could go and click it, and of course, if it's locked, when you try to change, then you'll get an error message saying your locked cells cannot be changed. But in these later versions, you can see that I click there, it's not changing the cursor there. So it's not an error or anything, it's just different ways of Excel, different versions of Excel work different ways. So as I had opened for view only, so it's read only is fine because I do not actually want to change anything. I just wanted to look at it. Whoever's changed it, last it was saved by AA at that particular time. That's all it's saying. So different version, different areas mean different things. We'll go through all these later on, some of the time. I just wanted to show you now in this particular tutorial what the typical rates file looks like. So the ZRUSD, the US dollar rates file has got 12 features. Some other currencies have got fewer features, for example, only 8, as you'll notice later on when we try to open other curves. And various different things. We will go through every single aspect of all the curves, and particularly, say, for example, US dollar, which is very heavily used all the time. And what these things, these are all different type, basis, frequency. This is a very specialist knowledge you will have by the time you've finished these tutorials. Not this particular one, we won't go through because this is itself will take more than one, definitely more than one tutorial, possibly several, for you to learn what they are and what they mean and so on, all these things. This will become probably second nature to you once you've learned, once you've attended all these tutorials, which I'm going to produce for you. So right now, I've got the ZRUSD.XLS read only that's open. So if I just want to show you, for example, switch window, if I look at it here, switch window, I can see I've got active one, tick mark is the first one. I am here now, but I also have this one is open. I can switch to that, I'm here, and so on. So, but this time if I try to Windows arrange file, notice if I click arrange all, this has some meanings to it, very much important. If I took this off, it will arrange, it makes this one and the other file either whether I use horizontal or vertical or horizontal or vertical, it'll basically divide it as you'll see, either this way in half or split the screen in that way half. So then this tick mark becomes very important because you have to have that. Other, if you didn't want the window to be split with the other file. So windows of active workbook, that's what it means. That's very important. So we'll cancel it. We won't actually do that. So let's, we'll stop now. Don't want to bore you too much in one go. You've learned the actual Excel AZMAT system, the file structures, not the file structure, or the filing system, basically, we went through that. Later on in another tutorial, we'll go through this each of these curves, the main four one, although once you learn one, they're all the same, very similar, so you wouldn't necessarily need to know all four of them, because if you knew one, then you would know all the rest as well. But you learn how to change the dates and so on, feature dates and so on. System will update it automatically. So I could be here and then use the utility menu, for example, close current file, do not save. Where is it? Close current file, do not save changes, or preferably actually try to get to using the curve K file, K menu, race and run for all curve files. So in this case, the actual file is exactly the same. Close current file, do not save changes. But if you were to edit or file race edit or file edit, so then it would make a big difference whether you use AZMAT System menu or file close to close the file, or even this icon to close the file. So always try to use Excel, not Excel, the AZMAT menus wherever possible if you're using AZMAT System. So in here, I can either, or even say close current curve, in which case it'll actually ask me if I don't need to, if I had opened the file for rates edit or files edit, whether I needed to save any changes or not. So in this one, I'm going to say close current file, do not save changes. So I am in the curve file. Remember, this is my current, so brilliant. So it doesn't want to bother me asking, do I want to save changes? Do I want to, save it in this unnecessary question? Because I used the correct command. I said in there, I said, close current file, do not save changes. So it doesn't need to waste my time asking whether I want to save any changes. Right. Let's stop now. I think we'll stop at this point now. So to remove this here, toolbars is over there. So click that again, because if I click here, that goes off. We'll stop now and then see you again. Another tutorial for yet another aspect of AZMAT System. Right, we haven't actually started programming yet. We're just going through basic AZMAT System, how to use AZMAT System, basically. So you'll know, then we won't need to later on, then we'll concentrate on different aspects of, for example, we use this data, the parameter areas, what they are, every single point of this. We'll go through it. It's a future tutorial. We'll also go through the actual menus, in the curve file. When we want to update it, there are various different commands have to be carried out before we can use calculations on using any of these cash flows or or discount factors and so on. So let's stop right now. Hopefully we'll see you again at future tutorial. So we'll stop here. I can actually let's save this particular file by, so you can see here it was 3rd of July, 1:37 a.m. was the last time it was saved. I want to save it again, so I can use the add-in, then save as data file. There. So now it's saved the 3rd of July, same day, 3:17 a.m. So let's stop right now. See you in another tutorial. different aspect of AZMAT System. So I'm going to stop it now. See you later. Bye.